Good morning, guys. It is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. This Bathrobe business. I am out of coffee, but I still have the news. So let's jump into it. There's a bunch of little stories I'm going to share. I don't feel like they have greater market implications, but I think they're all interesting in their own right. So let's start with Nvidia. So it's kind of funny that Nvidia has been facing a little bit of a headwind lately. So the latest one is Nvidia is down about 2% I should say Nvidia was down about 10% during regular trading yesterday, and then down another 2% in the pre-market because of a potential DOJ antitrust case. Now, this isn't actually official yet. The DOJ probe has not reached the stage of formal complaint, according to Bloomberg. All they're doing is investigating possible antitrust sentiment from Nvidia because they currently own 80% of the market. And then in addition, their complaint with the complaint from the DOJ is that they make it difficult for people to switch from Nvidia to other platforms. That similar to how like Apple does these things where you can't transfer data very easily. Even the blue versus green bubble and Messenger. It's these little things that make it more difficult for people to switch from one system to another. So this is the complaint. So because of this, Nvidia is down. Now this also comes from because I mentioned headwinds. This is the second headwind, in addition to the fact that last week when Nvidia reported earnings, people thought, oh, this is as high as it's going to go. We're going to take our money and go. And because of that, there was a slight dip. Personally, I don't think that this is a major headwind. When I see little dips like this, I will usually use them as a trade. So I will probably buy Nvidia today and then sell it within a week or so once I see a rebound. If it is still below where it was when the market's open. It's about 7:22 a.m. right now. So we'll see what the stock is doing once it opens. But I like to buy these dips. I think I don't know if I want to be in Nvidia permanently. I don't know what its future quarter outlook looks like, but I think for the trade, I think it's worth doing. Next story I'm going to share. Actually, let's stay on the chips. Let's stay on tech. So this is actually an interesting one from Qualcomm. So this is really bad news for Intel. I mean, also for AMD, but I feel like Intel is already on the downswing, and this is just going to hurt it further. So this was an announcement that I missed from I think it was a couple months ago. Qualcomm is getting into the PC business, and they're going to be producing chips for PCs specifically for Microsoft, especially for their laptops. And it's able to run AI right on the computer using very low energy and no internet connection needed. That's kind of a big deal because up until this point, not only is the energy consumption super high on this, but also you would need an internet connection because none of the processing is happening on the PC itself. But with their new chip, it's running right on the unit itself. This is definitely eating into Intel's profits. There's no question on that. If you were looking for a short, I think Intel is the one to short. But that's in addition to that. So this story also talks about how they're launching a new Snapdragon X Plus 8-core processor in order to ramp up even higher into the AI space. So this is replacing potential replacement for their current chips that are going into PCs. This one is going to be the chip itself is going to cost as low as $700, and it's going to be expanded to multiple devices, more heavy AI processing. They can already run Microsoft Copilot on most PCs, and this will expand that ability even further. They're very fascinating because I think as I've talked about on this channel before, AI I feel like hasn't quite paid off where it should, but I think a major step forward would be processing right on the unit itself. I always thought they were going to be integrating this into smart devices like Alexas, etc. But if this is a step in that direction, I think it makes a lot of sense where you're processing right on there. Plus, I feel like a lot of people will feel a little bit safer from a privacy standpoint. If engineered properly, nothing needs to be sent over the cloud. Everything can be run right on the unit itself. So just a very interesting story. Not good news for Intel at all. Next story I'm going to share. This is just a minor one. I'm just going to share this real quick, is that Dick's Sporting Goods blow past earnings expectations. They're being cautious about the rest of 2024 because of the election. I believe that's a bit of a cop-out. But the only reason I'm sharing this is because it's another story that shows retail is very strong. I've shared multiple stories with you guys over the last few weeks as multiple retailers, traditional brick and mortar retailers, are sharing their numbers. and retail is remaining incredibly strong. So the estimated the earnings per share were $4.37 versus the expected $3.83. Revenue came in at 3.47 billion versus 3.44 billion. So companies doing fantastic. Retail and brick and mortar is doing very well. Next story I'm going to share with you guys is mortgages. So mortgage demand is up 94%, and this is because we are maintaining interest rates below 7. So remember, it did hit 6.1 a number of weeks ago. It did go back up, but it's maintaining between 6.43 and 6.44 because of this mortgage demand is incredibly high. This is no doubt going to head higher if the Fed cuts interest rates. I think that's almost a certainty. You know how I feel about that. I do not want interest rate cuts for multiple reasons that I've elaborated on this channel, but it's more than likely to come. Once that happens, I'm sure this is going to drop below 5%. Last story I'm going to share with you guys is out of state. Usually I like to share local stories simply because I feel like I try to keep this channel centered to, first of all, Utah, and then second of all, to the United States proper. But I will share this story because I think it illustrates a major shift in manufacturing. So, and I feel like car manufacturing is core to the United States, so that's why I'll share it real quick. So, unions lash out against Volkswagen because Volkswagen is talking about closing down potentially 2 plants. This is not a small measure. They are talking about closing down plants in 2 different cities, and the unions are having major protests over it. They're saying that this violates their agreement that they've had that runs from 1994 to 2029. We're talking like a 40-year agreement. That's crazy. But they're saying that this is a violation of the union's terms, and that the only way this is acceptable is if Volkswagen declares bankruptcy. This is interesting for 2 reasons. One is in Europe, especially specifically in Germany, unlike the United States, their union structure is a little bit different than ours. Firstly, they are less adversarial. A lot of times the unions are part of management meetings. I have heard that they sometimes, union leaders will even sit on the board. I don't know if that's the case in Volkswagen's case, but I do know that the relationship between management and unions is much closer, much more collaborative in Europe than it is here in the United States. But it's also interesting because of, I believe, the shifting car market. I think this is very much echoed by EV sales. I don't think that this is a coincidence that Europe is Europe's greatest car manufacturer, Volkswagen, and they are the biggest car manufacturer in Europe. They are not just, and Europe is a little bit different too, because unlike the United States, most of their sales come from international, not necessarily domestic. But even Europe's manufacturer, I think, is feeling the shift away from traditional cars into EVs. That's not highlighted here in this article, but I think that's an unavoidable pressure, especially with China being an entrance, so many different car manufacturers in the United States moving into that space. I think this is a sign of the times of how things are moving towards EV. So that's pretty much it. Those are the stories of the day. That's kind of all I wanted to share with you guys. I will be back here tomorrow, but I hope you have a productive Wednesday, and I'll see you in the morning.